Hello everybody and welcome back to Unique Arts. I'm Costco Picasso, you can also call me Shannon. Today I just want to talk about a book that's already been out for a little bit, and if you're acquainted with the channel, I try to cover stuff that doesn't generally get too much coverage, kind of hence the title, Unique Art. But I wanted to cover this because I enjoyed it, and to be honest, I haven't read any sort of fantasy in a long time. It's been quite a while. Last year I barely read anything at all, and I'm trying to read more for fun, more for entertainment. And I read this book. I've been reading Lord of the Rings, so obviously Witchy Eye and Lord of the Rings are not exactly the same, but this was still fun. This was enjoyable. I, of course, do not regret reading it. And because it's the first thing I've read like this in quite a while, I just wanted to make a video about it. But regardless, today I'm talking about Witchy Eye by DJ Butler. To be honest, the reason I chose this book is because I met Dave at LTU in Provo, Utah, just a couple weeks ago. I guess my brother Liam over at Liam's Lyceum was already pretty acquainted with him, so I figured, why not? Dave was friendly. I talked to him just briefly, I guess you could say, and so here I am. I decided to read one of his books, and why not read Witchy Eye? So it's book one of the Witchy War series. There are four currently out. Witchy Eye itself came out 7 years ago in 2017, which, what a different world 2017 was. I wasn't married and I didn't have kids at that point, but I also didn't really pay taxes, so that's one good thing, I guess. Was nice. Also, the economy was better. But regardless, that's besides the point. I don't have a physical copy of this book, which is, I really like having physical copies, but along with reading for entertainment, I started doing audiobooks and stuff like that as well, and it's really convenient. And it's not really cost effective to just keep buying the physical copies if I listen to the audiobook. And this one I didn't even do audiobook. I did ebook, which is probably I like even less than audiobook, but it was free. It's free on Bane Books website. And so I recommend, if you're interested, just going and downloading it if you haven't already read it, considering it has been out for 7 years. But it is historical fantasy, like epic fantasy. I've never read anything like this before, like historical fantasy. So take my opinion with the idea that I've never read anything like it, so I don't have stuff to expressly compare it to. And I think that's okay necessarily. My opinion is still valid, perhaps. But regardless, the ebook's formatting and everything. It was good. It's just not the way I prefer it. The cover itself, compared to the other Bane book covers that I've looked at, it's way better. It's probably the worst of the four that are currently out, in my opinion. I can be kind of critical of covers. I am an art history guy myself, so I mean there is that. But regardless, the cover the cover isn't bad. It's kind of very stark frontal, kind of that primitive frontality right in your face too. So I mean, it gets your attention. So I mean that's good. And again, it's not really garish. Doesn't make me cringe. But there it is. I guess about the book, I'm not gonna do spoilers just in case, but I don't relate to any of the characters. But that's honestly pretty typical, so it doesn't really bother me. The main character is like a 15-year-old girl. I myself, being a 16-year-old girl, obviously don't relate. Just kidding. Obviously, I'm a grown man, but still, and I don't even have like a teenage daughter. My daughter's way younger than that, so I mean, there is that. But either way, overall, I will say it was good. It's a good book. I don't want this video to be too long. None of the characters are flat. They're written well. The book is written well. You get a lot of details, but I appreciate that, to be honest. It doesn't make it the fastest read, but it's still not a hard read or anything. I read a lot of philosophy. That stuff takes me a while because I think it demands it. This doesn't necessarily demand taking your time so much. There is a lot to take from it, though. There are a lot of names thrown in there, and a lot of these are historical names. I think that's good. In fact, the bad guy is a known bad guy. Like, he is a bad guy and was a bad guy in real life too. So I mean, in some regards, that was pretty awesome. Like, I already knew this guy was a bad guy, and now here he is. There's there's some extra layers to it and whatnot, but it's still good. And I did appreciate too that there were actually like the moments you can feel the dread, like, wow, this is a pretty dire situation. Characters actually died. Thanks, Dave, for killing my favorite character. Don't know if I'll forgive you for that one, but regardless, I appreciate that plot armor in lots of stories is way too thick, and people need to die when the situation calls for it being likely. Like, oh, you're facing a massive army. Odds are not every single person in your party is gonna make it out alive, if not seriously maimed. But regardless, I did appreciate that. There are some things, I guess if I had to have some hiccups, because I'm ever the critic, of course, I don't really care for the undead characters. It's just not really my thing, I guess. I'm not sure the last time I read a book that had like a lot of undead characters, and they weren't terrible. Of course, they were still written well, and it adds an extra dynamic. It's just not really something I care for too much, I suppose. And then on top of that, the main character, she's thrown into a role pretty quick that is vastly different than what she grew up with in many ways. And she adapts really quickly. That was one thing that kind of threw me off. I was like, I feel like she needs a bit more time. And in some regards, she's not fully adjusted by the end of the book anyway. But even then, just like, she still picked it up really well. Perhaps she was divinely inspired. She had to. And she obviously is perhaps, well, not ordinary, especially perhaps considering her lineage. And so, in some regards, she should be more capable than perhaps any of the other characters if they had been thrown in a role like that. And so, I mean, it didn't ruin it for me. It was just something I thought perhaps should have taken a bit longer. And then overall, the pacing, though, I thought was pretty good. It felt a little fast at times, but I don't think it actually was. In some regards, I was a little worried because at the beginning of the book, you get a couple of like major like spoilers and like plot stuff, and I was like, wow, okay, what's he gonna do the rest of this book? Like, this is stuff that I feel like you could have like thrown at us for a curveball at the very end of the book, but you gave it to us at the beginning, and yet he still held my attention the rest of the book. I think that's just because the book was written well. And so in some regards, I was like, well, maybe the pacing was too fast that I was still completely engrossed and entertained the whole time. But then I was like, no, I don't think it necessarily was too fast. It was just he was dangling a carrot in front of my face the whole time, so I was still enjoying it and entertained. So regardless, it was written well and it was a good book, and I highly recommend you read it if you haven't read it. I don't know when I will get to the rest of the series, but I definitely plan on getting to the rest of the series. I have pretty much no money at the present, which is sad, but regardless, I prefer physical copies again, but there's a good chance I'll probably get them on audiobook. I tend to not get not do audiobooks for more philosophical, academic, educational stuff because I need to mark it up and reference it later. But for these books that I'm just reading for fun and stuff like that, I don't need to mark it up. So audiobooks kind of justifies it for me. It's just, I still like to have the physical copy, put it on my bookshelf and whatnot, and admire it from afar. But regardless, good book, highly recommend it. Dave was a nice guy, so I read his book. So I guess it pays to be nice, right? Although I didn't give him any money because I downloaded the book for free. But still, I'm sure I'll spend some money in the future for some of his books. And so there's that. If you have any questions, I guess, let me know down in the comments. Please like and subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. And I will see you guys next time.